So my name is Luuk Weber. Today I'm going to give a small presentation about why I think that regeneration is the foundation for autonomy. And I'll quickly give a brief overview of the Kolektivo framework, a framework for local regenerative economies. So this is me. I'm both the founder and a steward of Kolektivo. I have about 4 years working full-time now in Web3, primarily focused on DAOs and regeneration. I come from a small Caribbean island called Curacao, and that's where we're going to start our journey. Look at this. Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. So that's Curacao. I was born there, I was raised there. It's a small Caribbean island with about 160,000 people. It's just north of Venezuela. It used to be a former Dutch colony, and it has a rich history as being a hub in the Caribbean. It's kind of in between Latin America and Europe and the States, so a lot of people go there for business. We had quite a prosperous economy because of this location. All the local people, they speak 4 languages. They speak Dutch, English, Spanish, and Papiamento, the local language. And we have an economy that is quite dollarized. Our local currency is backed by US dollar, so we have a fixed peg. So at any time you can go and change your US dollars for guilders, the local currency. And it is therefore also quite an advanced economy compared to the other nations in the region. I think our average income is about 27, 28,000 a year, which is quite high for the region. So everything looks great, but we used to be part of this country called the Dutch Antilles, or the Netherlands Antilles. It used to be a country made up out of 6 islands in the Caribbean region. But around the change of the century, Curacao started to create this independent identity. People wanted to become independent, they wanted their own nation. They felt that this was our point to become autonomous. So on 10-10-10, we finally became an independent nation, an autonomous nation within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, but it's autonomous. We did continue to keep our own currency, the Antillean guilder. We kept our own government, and we were ready to roll. We got our own flag, our debts were cleared. Finally, Curacao started to pop up and drop down menus, and you could finally select your own country, and you're like, yes, this is amazing. So everything was great. Right? Was it? Not really, because our economy was shrinking already for a decade. And then COVID came around, and our only final pillar that we had left, tourism, completely destroyed. Unemployment went from 19 to almost 45% in 2019 and 2020. People were literally starving of hunger in what we considered a first world nation. Over 50% of the country was relying on food aid, because we didn't have the local food systems to keep people fed. We relied so much on export and outside forces to stay alive that we were now in this really bad spot. So what did we do? The one thing that we know, we went to the Netherlands and said, can you please give me money? And they said, yes, if you do certain things. So here we are, again, a debt of a couple €100 million for a small country. It's almost the same as our GDP. And again, we are in the state where we were 10 years ago. We're indebted to an outside force. We want to be autonomous, but clearly we aren't at that stage yet that our systems are self-sufficient. But there's a way forward. Because the cracks that you see in this system, those are real people. Those are families that are being destroyed. Those are people with emotions, with dreams, with desires, people that should be taken care of. But the current system just doesn't create the conditions for them to thrive. It doesn't create the conditions for them to be autonomous, for them to be themselves and use the talents and resources that they have available. So at the lows of the lows, the people in Curacao asked the question, can we create a system that develops a nation towards this autonomy? A system that is resilient and truly cares about what the local population needs, that truly cares about the barriers of the island. And instead of being built on things like oil refinery and financial services, can we build economies that truly care about the people, that empower the people to be more, to do more? Can we build a system that is regenerative? Yes, we can. So this is a good visualization of what I consider regenerative development. I think this was from a research from Reed and Roland. As you can see on the bottom left corner, this is the degen stuff. Not quite interested in that. It's taking from Earth, taking resources away, and destroying things. But on the other side, there's regenerative development. Development that's holistic, that takes all stakeholders into account. Development that creates the conditions for more positive development. And this is the interesting stuff. This is the stuff that we want and that the people in Curacao and around the world need. So we started this journey already 4 years ago in 2019 when we launched Curacao, a small social impact DAO in Curacao with about 50 governors that were giving small grants to people on the island. A little bit later, we also started Curacao, a stablecoin for the island, which were piloted, and we had about 300 users. But there was more social change happening on the island. There were synthropic farmers starting to pop up here and there. We have dozens of food forests on the island. We have a donut economy group running around. And it was really true that we could really see and feel that the island was moving towards regeneration. And that's how Kolektivo came about. So Kolektivo means collective in Papiamento. It really embodies this vision and feeling of Kolektivo, of doing it really together. And it's a framework for creating local regenerative economies with the emphasis on local. Because every community is different. They have different needs, different wants, different pains. And we need to acknowledge those if we want to put them in a state to even care about the bigger thing, to care about climate. If they don't have the food to eat, if they don't have the love to feel, how can they care about a glacier that's melting? They've never seen snow. They need to be aware first of themselves, of their community, and then they can think about the greater good. So that's Kolektivo. There's a whole bunch in the framework, and I'm only going to touch some points of it. So first and foremost, it's a toolkit for local communities to create and govern a complementary community currency. This term complementary is so important because when you start dancing with nation states, they get really scared when you're talking about currency. But if you explain to them that this system is not here to replace you, it's only here to fill the gaps that the current economies can't fill, and you say this is an addition to the great work you're already doing, it makes it much better to chew. But really, we are not trying to take anyone's spot. We're just trying to make the world a better place and fill the gaps that are open. Then there's a framework for creating, monitoring, and verifying regenerative assets. Assets that regenerate the state of the community and the biosphere. There's a model for leveraging these regenerative assets to create more community currencies, kind of in the nature of regeneration, using the good that you do today to create even more good the next day. There's a mobile wallet optimized for local users. Think about local translations, local on and off ramps, a map of all the places that they can participate in. Then there's a network of local and global stakeholders. Like really seeing all these people here and the people that we've worked with over the past year, it's truly incredible. We have a Refi DAO, we have Celo supporting us, we have Astral Protocol, Toucan Protocol, we have amazing developer teams, Curve Labs, Byte Rocket. It's really incredible to see all these different people and groups coming together to build something so important. And it's all built on Celo. And when people ask me, why Celo? It's the question that a lot of people ask me. They've tried to lure me everywhere, from Avalanche to Arbitrum. And I tell them it's because of the values of Celo, of what it's trying to achieve, of the people that are part of Celo, the people that are sitting here. That is what will make the difference in the long run. Because technology we can change, but values and meaning and the direction that we're going, I think, is way more important. So how do we do this? So how do we do it? Creating a local regenerative economy. A lot of it starts with making the conditions for such a system to emerge. So what we did is we built a team on the ground in Curacao with what I would say are some of the most amazing people from the island. Every person that is here came here for a reason. They were already doing amazing things before we got in touch with them, and hopefully they'll be able to do even more good. One of them, they had a group on Facebook called Spread the Love. Can you imagine someone that has a Facebook group called Spread the Love? Those are the people that we want in this system and the people that will create the conditions from prosperity. Also the research group, Curve Labs, they flew over to Curacao about a month ago. They brought a dozen of people, and the intersection of kind of cutting edge Web3 people and the locals, it's truly incredible. So what are some of the things that we are doing and will continue to do on Curacao? So it's creating the conditions for regenerative assets. These natural capital assets that create capital for people and for the biosphere. We started it off with food forest. This is kind of the first asset class that we're focusing on. We have about a dozen of food forests in Curacao, 5 of which are completely part of Kolektivo, and we're going to try to tokenize these efforts and have it involved into the Kolektivo system. But after food forests, there's so much more. Think about mangrove forests. Think about, there's so much actually. And then also, we are working on the frameworks together with groups like Astro Protocol to really make the methods to verify and measure the impact and the data that we're collecting. We're also supporting creation of positive value on the ground through grants. Over the past 2 years, we've already allocated about 40 grants to community projects, mainly to NGOs, but also to social entrepreneurs. And what you often see is that they were already doing a lot of good stuff, but they were missing just these final incentives and nudges to scale up. So instead of being a small organization with a little bit of, let's say, underdeveloped marketing, underdeveloped accounting, now we can come in and we give them not just the tools and the finance, but also the network to really scale up and move forward. And creating the pathway for people that are already doing good and just amplifying the good stuff that they're doing, because we as Kolektivo can't do everything, and we don't want to. Then there's the community commerce part. I think Sab mentioned it already in the opening talk. It's creating these environments where local commerce happens, and that also creates a lot of positive extra benefits that you may not see on the surface level when you purchase from a local store. But that dollar that you spend there can go very far in creating value for the local economy. So during the first Curacao pilot, we had about 250 users and 20 local stores. I think it was during a period of about 6 months. Now we're developing the next iteration, completely built on Celo and to connect it to the Kolektivo system. We are developing local on and off ramps, which was a real big pain point initially because we weren't able to send someone funds and then allow them to go to Gilder, so they were kind of trapped in a system that was still underdeveloped. Once we solved that, people can also come into the system, which was an interesting question that I got so many times. How can I get more Curacao? And I said, yeah, request a grant, but actually what they meant was I want to throw my money in this thing and help out. And we need to create the conditions for people to be able to do that. And then, like I mentioned, leveraging these regenerative assets to create more local community currencies and continue to fuel this development underground. So what's the roadmap for this year? So we're currently implementing the final researches that we got from March, the insights that we got from the user research, the technical specifications. We're going to take that all into account when we're making the Kolektivo MVP, which is going to go live in Q3 of this year on the ground in Curacao. We're opening the first Kolektivo hub, which is almost like a breeding ground for talent and support on the island. We're scouting a really beautiful location in the city center of Curacao that if anyone of the refi community feels like going there, there will be a spot for you to work and sleep and live and eat and everything. And then we're going to incorporate all the learnings that we have now to complete the framework in the final months of the year, in the first half of next year, and hopefully allow this framework to scale beyond Curacao. Because it's not just Curacao that is having these tensions. It's a lot of small nation states, remote communities, countries that are currently underdeveloped that could benefit a lot from having these mechanisms that allow them to develop and continue to develop based on their wins. Just the US dollar-backed currencies are, I think, already 18 or 19 in the world. Once we have the model for Curacao, it's quite easy to replicate and kind of hand off all our learnings to them. And hopefully we can scale this to tens or maybe even hundreds of Kolektivo instances before the end of this decade. Because there's a lot of problems that we still need to solve. And that's also kind of my final call to all of you. So we're planning to host a big Kolektivo festival in Curacao right after DEF CON. So if you plan to go to Colombia or just want to come to Curacao, October 21st and October 22nd, we're going to give a big innovation festival, 2 days of Web3, refi, and mingling with the local innovators and change makers, using the first Kolektivo mobile app and really trying to push this to the potential best pilot that we can imagine. To summarize, autonomy is something that both people and nations want, but it's not something that is easy to get. It's something that we have moved far away from in the current economic and political environment that we have. But it's something that we need if we want to change the world and if we want people to truly be empowered and truly create the conditions for prosperity. So what I hope that we can do is continue to work hard, bring the positive vibes that I see here, and yeah, make Kolektivo a success. That's it. Thank you so much. So we have about 5 minutes. I'll be happy to take a couple questions, maybe 1 or 2, and then I'll pass the word to my good friend Pat. Any questions? Go for it, John.
What surprised you the most working on the ground with these people and experimenting with vision?
what surprised me the most on the ground? I think there are one occasion that really stood out to me. It was in early Curacao times when we were giving away grants. And one of the first small organizations that came to us was Youth for Climate. It's a small local group of teens primarily that are taking initiatives towards climate. And they came to Curacao for a grant, and I asked them, why are you coming to us? We're so complicated and weird. And they said, because no one else takes us serious. They had projects with the government, with other NGOs, but every time they were treated like children. Like, hey, can you help with my project? But no one asked them, what do you need to create what you want to create? And then this weird blockchain thing, like this was 2019, everything was broken and bad. But they pushed through, and in the end, they organized a beach cleanup with 70 people, and the vibe, like everything was amazing. And I was just standing there like, wow, our crazy blockchain app brought 70 people together to do something that they wouldn't have done if it wasn't for these mere $100 that we sent them. But it wasn't the $100, it was everything that came with it. The feeling that, hey, we can do this, we are good enough to do this, we don't need anyone's permission. So that really stuck, and kind of what came next to that was they understood everything besides Ethereum. Why is the thing going up? Why is it going down? I thought I asked 100 guilders, why do I only get 90? And that's really the point that kind of triggered the creation of Curacao and kind of this move towards, now a more stable system, I would say, because people, maybe, I think because we're all quite financial, we may be underestimating how hard finance is for normal people, and that it's really weird to change things for other, like most people have never done that, or maybe once or twice they go to an exchange booth and like they get other cash. But yeah, for them, the currency was the weirdest part of all of it. And then once we started doing Curacao, you could already see that people were understanding because they could count with their numbers. They understood if I said 4, what 4 meant, like 4 is a lot or it's little, and it's, so that was really, I think, two of the best insights. Final question, anyone? Cool, I think we'll just leave it there. Thanks so much, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure.